Kei ngā mana tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome to Tapatahi. Thanks for joining us. Well, coming up on today's program, Dr Elena Curtis tells us why it's time for restrictions to be eased around tangihanga. Deputy Police Commissioner Wali Haumaha explains how they're working with iwi-led checkpoints. And are we sticking to Alert Level 3 rules or have we become complacent? We talk with the chairperson of the Federation of Māori Authorities, Traci Houpapa, on what needs to be done to rebuild the economy. And Kipper Smith joins us from Te Pāpaka Nui a Māui with his Stevie Wonder medley.
I never thought that life would be making love as lovely as she. Isn't she lovely, made from love?
But first, here's what you need to know in 30 seconds. Well, it's day 3 at Alert Level 3. The new national total of confirmed and probable cases of COVID-19 is 1,474. There is one new confirmed case, one new probable case, and no change to the death toll. There are 6 people in hospital with no one currently in intensive care. And of the total number of positive cases, 126 are Māori and 75 are Pasifika. COVID-19 restrictions on tangihanga have added considerably to the burden of grief whānau bear when a loved one passes. The restrictions also drew criticism for dislocating Māori from an essential cultural practice. Alert Level 3 has seen changes to tangihanga guidelines, but there are still significant challenges, as this report explains.
He whakatau ua mā tēnei whānau I tēnei wā taumaha.
The pain and the heartache of this long process now has become very, very hard for us. So we feel like, we just need to bury him and give him his tangi as soon as we can.
Kua whā wiki te tū pāpaku o Jimmy Brennan e pupuriti ana ki tētahi whare tū pāpaku ki o tautahi. Ka mutu hei tā auraki Brennan, kua tai te wā kia hoki anō tana pāpā ki tōna kāinga tūturu.
We have decided as whānau that we will move forward on Level 3. We weren't too happy with leaving him there any longer.
Especially with our culture being a very collective thinking culture, especially at times of tangihanga. That has been very challenging for the family of the deceased.
Hei tā te kaitiaki tū pāpaku tā Alan Pukepuke, ka taia e tētehi tokorua o te whānau pani te whakakākahu I te kirimate.
At no given time is there to be any personal or skin contact between any of the whānau and the deceased at any given time. That is during the dressing, during the viewing.
It's hard with this 10 people rule because it's almost like we've got to keep it quiet because, of people that are just going to show up, and how do we police that as a whānau? I feel like that's not our responsibility to police that as a whānau.
Ia rā, ka karekia tahi rātou ki ngā whānau te kaumārua, he uri o rātou kua mate, e aroha atu wana a aoraki ki ngā whānau e noho pani nei.
I know exactly what you're going through, and this is the hardest thing I've gone through in my life, easily.
I think our whānau out there, they understand the bigger picture. They don't like it, no one likes it, but we understand the reasons that we are doing it.
Hei whakatutuki I ngā hiahia o ngā whānau Māori, ka pōhiritia ngā tangata te kau I te wā kotahi, mā tēnei e taia ai e ngā whānau te tangi tika ki o rātou mate. Mare haimona riki, te a Māori.
Dr Elena Curtis is a member of Te Rōpū Whakakaupapa Uruta, the National Māori Pandemic Group. She believes it's time to ease the restrictions on tangihanga and is with me now. Tēnā koe, Elena.
Kia ora, tēnā koe.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Tell us about your view on easing the restrictions around tangihanga. Why do you feel that?
Look, it's really, really important to Te Rōpū Whakakaupapa Uruta that the guidelines around tangihanga are evidence-based and that they reflect the realities of our Māori whānau. And at the moment, the guidelines are overly restrictive. They are limiting our ability to conduct tikanga and tangihanga processes, and they're not coming from a public health evidence-based perspective. So we really feel that there are many amendments that need to happen to these guidelines, and we have advised the Ministry of Health of those.
The restrictions around tangi have caused a lot of grief for Māori. Why do you believe it is safe to ease off on those rules, and was it ever not safe?
Look, safety and the public health safety is really, really important for Māori in these processes, but we believe they can be managed adequately by funeral directors, and that the physical distancing is the key, and that also personal hygiene, and that we have a way in which we can do that, which can overcome the restrictions that have been put on by the tangihanga guidelines.
How much can restrictions be eased and still ensure the safety of mourners?
So we believe that, sorry, what was that?
No, haere tonu, carry on.
Oh, papai. We believe in particular that the restriction on interregional transfer being restricted only to to basically having funeral directors have to do that interregional transfer is a key problem. That will be very prohibitive for Māori whānau who are unlikely to be able to afford funeral directors doing that. In addition, we believe that multiple bubbles can basically go with the tūpapaki to ancestral urupā. This is something that our whānau do and have done for a long time and have done safely. So definitely the interregional transfer needs to be amended. In addition, the notion of this arbitrary number of 10 attending a tangihanga is problematic. What we need to focus on is the evidence base around infectivity associated with whether we can do the physical distancing and can maintain the hygiene. We believe funeral directors can manage that. And so rather than an arbitrary number of 10, we should actually be doing a case-by-case analysis and ensuring that whānau can still maintain tangihanga processes safely, but it can be done. And at the moment, the guidelines are restricting this in a way that's unnecessary based on evidence.
What has been your own emotional response to the restrictions?
A large amount of response is what I would say. I am so deeply upset that we don't have our Indigenous rights upheld. I'm deeply upset that as a public health physician, my advice or our advice on infectivity risk is not being listened to. And I'm deeply upset because I hear from whānau who email me about the experiences and they're mamai and they're painful. And this pandemic and the response to the pandemic should not make things worse for our whānau. It should be making things better in whatever way it can. It should have equity at the core. It should have our Indigenous rights at the core, our tino rangatiratanga, our mana mutahake. And it doesn't right now. And it can do. It can do. So there really should be the amendments to these guidelines which are overly restrictive.
I'd like to also talk about data, because that's another subject that you've been talking about. The data that's based on ethnicity. Now, the Ministry of Health, they released the numbers of Māori infected and tested. But what more do we need to know?
Yeah, it's so complex. Like, well, that seems good. We've got some data, but actually it's very limited data, and it's not comprehensive. We don't know where the Māori are that have been tested. We don't know the region. We don't know the agenda. We also don't know who the Māori are that have been hospitalised, who has reached ICU or not reached ICU. How severe is COVID for Māori? These are really important things to understand. As well as that, we don't even know how many Māori have died of those 4 people that have died from COVID already. Without that data, we can't monitor the Crown. We can't actually identify and see if there are inequities that need to be addressed. And that's really a breach of our Indigenous rights as well. You know, to not have that ethnicity data, yeah, it's shocking to think. How are we going to monitor this pandemic for Māori?
Is there any excuse for the gap or disparities that we can see in data that's being provided, given COVID-19 has really turned things upside down, I suppose, and not wanting to give excuses or make excuses for the ministry, but in this day and age, and where we are currently with COVID-19, is there any excuse for the lack of good data?
Well, quite frankly, I think that this is about having a Ministry of Health and having a government that values counting by ethnicity. And I don't really think there should be an excuse, to be honest. It's a basic right to have ethnicity data. And actually, to not have the data in this pandemic response contravenes the Ministry of Health's own guidelines around ethnicity data protocols. So it's been a problem across the sector. We now need to address it and fix it fast.
Why is it important to really drill down and get the detail on ethnicity testing and data?
If we don't drill down, we don't have a comprehensive understanding of this pandemic, how it's playing out in our Māori communities, and therefore where the high risk areas are, where resources need to go to. In other words, we are being left almost silent in this pandemic because we just don't know. We don't actually know the community transmission for Māori in terms of what's going on in our communities. And that's not fair. That's not a system that has health equity and Māori rights at the centre of it. Ethnicity data is key. And I think that we have been asking and asking and asking. And I think if they have problems, be transparent about it. Tell us what their problems are so we could potentially help them to overcome them. But yeah, to just keep on pretending there's some ethnicity data, which of course there is some and there's been some movement, but there needs to be a lot more movement. And I think there's a lot more reaction that needs to happen and quickly to get this ethnicity data sorted out.
Elena, we don't have much time left, but I do want to touch on contact tracing because it is so important. Tracing all the people a COVID-19 sufferer has been in contact with is essential to eliminating the disease. The Ministry and DHBs have their methods, but what do you think would be best practice for us, for Māori?
Yeah, I think we need to really understand that the people that are doing all the great work around contact tracing, are they actually fit for purpose for Māori whānau and Māori contact tracing? How safe do our whānau feel in telling people over the phone who they've been with, what they've been doing? Because we've got to remember the reality for our bubble is not the same as a Pākehā bubble. We're living in overcrowded conditions. We may even be leaving the bubble because of food insecurity and poverty, etc., which is not ideal. So people may feel at risk. So having Māori communities in control of some of the contact tracing is important, and making sure that the contact tracers understand the reality of Māori whānau and can bring that in to how they go about contact tracing. That's very, very key.
Dr Elena Curtis, thank you so much for your time this morning. We really do appreciate it. Tēnā rawa atu koe.
Kia ora.
Well, iwi-led checkpoints are either a shining example of tino rangatiratanga in action or an intimidating infringement of other people's civil liberties, depending on your point of view. Around the motu, there is talk of people becoming complacent under Level 3. In the first 18 hours of Level 3, 104 people were warned or prosecuted for breaches of the restrictions. Well, with me now to talk checkpoints and Level 3 policing is Deputy Police Commissioner Wally Haumaha. Tēnā koe, Wally.
Morena, Shane.
Thank you for joining us. It's lovely to speak with you again. With this week's move to Level 3, there is some loosening of the restrictions, but not a lot, especially around travel. Are people sticking to the rules or are they becoming complacent?
Look, my apologies, we've lost sound.
Okay, can you hear me now, Wally?
Yes, I can. I can hear now.
I'm not sure if you heard my question, but it's really asking about whether people are sticking to the rules.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, overall, police are really happy with the way people have transitioned out of Level 4 into Level 3. As you mentioned, there have been breaches, but in the majority of cases, police have warned a lot of people for physical distancing, unnecessary travel. But overall, look, we are pleased with the way people are still following the rules. We encourage them not to be compliant to the plans that we've thus far. And in response to our iwi entities up and down the country, well, you know, their leadership inside of this has been nothing short of inspirational. The way that they've stepped out, the way that they've looked after their communities, the way that they've protected the safety of their kaumātua and their pakake inside of small communities. I'm just absolutely encouraged by what I've seen, and, you know, the aroha that's been shown right across the board has been just absolutely excellent to watch all of this, Shane.
Well, that's really pleasing to hear about the iwi response, and we will go there shortly. I just want to go back to the approach that police are taking to monitor the way in which people are sticking to the rules. What sort of approach is the police taking? Is it a carrot or is it a stick type of approach?
No. Our message to our staff up there is about being quite calm in our response, being confident in the way we work with our people, being compassionate, understanding that these are extraordinary times. So our primary message is to engage with our people, to understand what some of the issues are that they're feeling under these constraints. It's about educating each other around what the rules are and what those rules mean for everybody, encouraging everybody to stay at home, stay safe, stay within your bubble, stay local. If you're sick, stay home again or get in touch with the medical services. So our message, if there are breaches, at the end of all of what we do together in partnership, our last resort is to look at an enforcement option. But our main message is about engaging with the people, encouraging them to stay home, encouraging them to do the don't lose momentum, educating about what this means to breach the rules and what they're likely to face.
Thank you, Wally, and thank you for persevering with our technical challenges that we're facing. Of course, that's what Skype delivers us, right? So thank you for bearing with us. I do want to go back to your kōrero about the response from iwi, and you described that as inspirational. Do you share the same view of the checkpoints that have been set up by iwi and communities around the country?
Well, there's been a lot of commentary around the legality of checkpoints. But, given the extraordinary times that we are in, and also most of the small rural communities and the leadership that I've spoken to has been about protecting their small communities, protecting their kaumātua, looking at their whakapapa, realising historical issues have been for Māori in terms of pandemic events in the past, looking at respective areas up and down the country that they've shown me mass graves and what the referefa back in the 1918 did to their people. So the motivation and the principles that have been put in front of me have been ones that haven't been self-serving, they haven't been obstructive, the intent has been the right intent. So if we have to look at the law in terms of being black and white, and not understanding the areas of grey, and then we come to a position where, have we done this because it's the right thing to do? Well, in terms of looking after small communities and the low immunity levels of most Māori that that we know of, and if you think about small communities like Te Kaha and their distance from medical services, and of course, can step protect their people without restricting the freedom of those who have the legitimate right to travel on the roads. And there have been some that have breached the rules around travel from region to region and have been turned around. But overall, the feedback that we've had from, and it depends on which sector of society you talk to, but overall, the general feeling has been that these checkpoints have supported the people. People go and talk to those who are volunteers on those checkpoints, asking where they can access food services. And, we've had reports. I had a nice email this morning from the north about a member of the community further north of Kaihāpai, south of Kaihāpai rather, who had a beautiful article in the Northern Advocate around the importance of working with kaumātua, working with local volunteers, and just supporting their community to function and keep safe, under the conditions that we've been since lockdown. So, yeah, I think the motivation for the checkpoints was the right one. Is it legal? Well, in the strictest terms of the law, no, it is not legal. But now that during level 3, our police staff will be supporting the checkpoints by working with them to ensure that they are safe. They are being established with the support of the district commander, with the civil defence emergency management groups that are out there. So there's a whole range of things to take into consideration when we are looking into this whole event of checkpoints, Shane.
Well, thank you so much, Wally, for joining us this morning. We really do appreciate your time, and thank you also for persevering with our Skype challenges. It's been great to talk to you this morning. Tēnā koe.
Kia ora.
Wally Haumaha there, the Deputy Police Commissioner. Well, Māori business leaders expect to be at the decision-making table with government and industry when it comes to rebooting the economy hit by COVID-19. Federation of Māori Authorities Chairperson Traci Houpapa says any economic recovery needs a fully coordinated approach. FOMA represents 150 Māori organisations, businesses and iwi entities that own $11.5 billion of assets. Traci Houpapa joins me now. Tēnā koe, Traci. Thank you for joining us.
Tēnā koe, Shane.
It's great to talk with you again. Tell us, how has COVID-19 affected your members?
Oh, look, Shane, tēnei te mihi atu ki a tātou katoa i ngāi tātou tiwi Māori. Shane, back in December 2019, when Wuhan hit, that story broke internationally. Many of our ā-whānau Māori started to retrofit and prepare for what we believed was going to be a pandemic and impact international markets. Since that time, we saw forestry start to re-engineer. We have always been aware, Shane, of the impact of softening global economies and changes in market forces. COVID-19 is yet another challenge that ā-whānau Māori and the Māori economy will weather and will survive.
So it sounds like your members are pretty resilient, but nonetheless will be impacted significantly, right, by COVID-19. What's your understanding of that impact?
Sure. So look, the primary industry is largely resilient. We were recognised as essential business, and so dairy and sheep and beef, or dry stock, continued to operate during this COVID lockdown period. The big issue for Māori and for all primary producers, Shane, is really access to market. So closing the borders immediately impact our ability to continue with our supply chains. The good news is that that's starting to relax, and we're starting to get produce to market, which is critically important, not only for business survival, but also for our communities and regional economic development.
What about some of the other parts of your membership and the impact that COVID-19 has had on them?
Sure. So, look, the primary industry, or ā-whānau Māori, typically have a strong balance sheet. We have a conservative approach to business. Our intergenerational focus means that we are investment ready and more resilient. The impact largely of the lockdown and COVID, Shane, has been on our small to medium-sized businesses, our mum and dad businesses, for whom even a week's lockdown shows immediate impact on the cash flow and their ability to operate. Our focus has specifically been on how we can advise and work with government to ensure that there is a fiscal response and support package for our SMEs. And you've heard about that through media and in the Prime Minister's various press statements.
You've spoken about the impact the closure of our borders has had on parts of your membership. What else do you think your members need for a successful restart to the economy?
Yeah, sure, Shane. There are about 3 areas that we really believe that government, industry and Māori need to be focusing on right now. New Zealand's an exporting nation, and so while being a small island nation with a large moat has been useful in us being able to combat and staunch the pandemic, it also means that we have the opportunity to reconsider how we engage with the world in terms of digital platforms and trade. So our immediate advice to government and industry has been to ensure that wherever possible access to market in terms of supply chain and logistics is maintained. We're currently reviewing a lot of free trade agreements, and we are also expecting government like MFAT and others to include an Indigenous economic exporting chapter in all new FTAs and reviewed FTAs, and that means that tariffs and market barriers are reduced or minimised for Māori exporters. We recognise that part of the attractiveness for kai from Aotearoa is going to be a carbon neutral economy, and so we're working closely with ministers to ensure that the climate change response for the primary industry and for Māori is appropriate to ensure that we can maintain and grow business while considering what's good for our environment and our economy. And lastly, and it's the big one too, so these are the three biggies, Shane. Lastly is really around how we manage and support the use of our natural resources, first up, obviously, being water.
I also want to touch on horticulture because the harvest is on, and are there opportunities there for workers who may have lost their jobs in other sectors?
Yeah, typically the horticultural industry is running at about 3,500 to 4,500 vacancies at any time. So it's a big labour and employment opportunity for those people who want to pick up those jobs. We are finding that even now, people aren't finding that opportunity as attractive as they might, whether that's about conditions, Shane, or whether that's about wages, I'm not entirely sure. The fact is that with our international borders closed, the opportunity for migrant workers to come into New Zealand to help in seasonal work means that our people are really going to be the first call. We need to make sure that all industries like hort and farming, forestry and fisheries are attractive for our people. Some of that's about job conditions, some of that's about employment opportunities, and some of that's about profiling.
Traci Houpapa, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Ka nui te mihi.
Kia koe hoki e hoa. Kia ora.
Traci Houpapa there, the chairperson of FOMA. Well, as soon as the country moved to alert level 3 this week, Tobys Seafood was ready for business. Their shop in Ōtāhuhu opened just after midnight on Tuesday and offered customers the option of pre-ordering online. But staff were forced to cancel online orders after the massive influx caused the system to shut down. Staff member Craig Tobin spoke to Tapatahi about how they had to go back to orders over the phone, not only to catch up, but to ensure their staff were safe from the mass congregation of customers.
Since we opened last night, which we were expecting it was just, I don't know, with a flash word, it's just, it was chaos basically, and busy. Everyone's happy that we were open. They were all happy, but unfortunately I can probably say that just the wait was so long. I even heard we had a few customers that had been here since 12:30 or 1 o'clock, and they were still here at 4 o'clock waiting for the order, but they were saying we don't mind waiting. We had the online ordering system set up before we opened, yes. When we opened it up, we just got, there was that many orders that came through once and yeah, just crashed. In this new health and safety way of the COVID-19, that was our hardest part, to try and get our customers used to that. And but when the online crashed, then we had to do phone orders, go back the old school way. But we've done the best we could. We have, with the bubble, you know, we have, lucky we have a few Māoris that stay in the same bubble, that we could have them as one team cooking. So that's how we're getting away with that, because our kitchen's very small.
Kua hia kai, naine. Well, finding ways of keeping our tamariki fit and active during lockdown and beyond has been challenging for many of our whānau. Taranaki black belt Shane Hoskin, who runs a martial arts centre, has been offering free lessons on Facebook several times a week since lockdown began. He's passionate about stomping out bullying and says that martial arts is a powerful tool for empowering tamariki. Shane, thanks for joining us. Tēnā rawatu koe.
Kia ora whānau.
So Shane, how have you been doing this during lockdown?
So I've been running the free lessons on Facebook, and it's a Facebook Live. So I created a group as soon as lockdown happened, and I had 11 members, and within the first week it grew to like 2,000 members worldwide. So it's been a pretty awesome thing to offer for the kids during these unprecedented times.
What did you learn from that experience? Going from 11 to 2,000 followers is pretty significant, right?
Yeah, well, we created the group for our online martial arts business that we have, and I just thought, there's a lot of kids at home that are, that are out of routine, that need something to look forward to. So I thought I'll offer these online lessons, not thinking how big it was actually going to get, and it grew so big that we've attracted kids from the UK, from America, Tahiti, and Australia, and all over New Zealand. It's been awesome to be able to help kids in these times.
That is awesome. Tell us, what are the benefits of learning martial arts?
The benefits are huge, especially for kids. It empowers kids with confidence, which is a thing a lot of our tamariki lack in our day and age. And it also gives them focus, also respect, self-respect, and not only for themselves, but being able to respect their elders as well, which is a big part of our kaupapa here at Local Impact.
And
so there's benefits.
Thanks for that. Tell us also about your pursuit to stamp out bullying and how you're using martial arts to do that. Okay,
so I was bullied as a child. So it's a passion of mine to be able to help kids that have been dealing with bullying, because it happened to me from primary school right up to high school. And to be in a position to be able to help tamariki in the community with bullying is a big thing for me. It's my passion. And I've been offering for the last 3 years free bully awareness workshops in all primary schools in Taranaki, which has had a massive impact with the kids in Taranaki especially. And we also offer a free online bully awareness package for kids as well, and families, because it's important that we upskill the families, the parents, on how to help their kids deal with bullying. And yeah, it's been awesome.
It's quite admirable, the work that you're doing, I have to say. But how does getting kids involved in martial arts help to combat bullying?
Well, we teach, obviously, martial arts, how to defend yourself, and that creates confidence within the child, and the confidence to know that they can defend themselves but not use it, and to use their words to be able to talk themselves out of a situation. Knowing that a child can look after themselves, that's self-defense in its own. It's the way that they stand when they have a confrontation. It's their body language is a big, huge thing that shows that they're not a target and that they're not to be, bullied anymore.
No, thank you so much for that, and thank you for the work that you're doing with our tamariki. Finally, I just want to ask you, how has lockdown been for you outside of martial arts and this work that you're involved in?
It's been a handful. We've got 4 kids of our own at home, 2 teenagers, a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old. But it wouldn't be possible for me to do what I do without my support that I have that back me to do what I want, do my passion. And my wife, who's the managing director of the business, she has had a massive impact on being able to offer this to kids at the moment. She has created the software. She created the software for us to offer our online lessons as well, for me to be able to teach. So I'm able to do what I do, and without the support that we have behind me with my wife. So it's been pretty busy, to say the least, because we do have students here at the local impact that I'm still teaching via Zoom. So we've been able to keep their routine going as well. So not only offering the free ones, but we've been offering our lessons for our kids that we teach locally.
So for those that are interested in lessons, what do they need to do? Where can they get more information from?
So they can contact us through our Facebook page, Local Impact, JSK 50 Taranaki Martial Arts. And we do offer martial arts lessons virtually, so kids can learn our martial arts from any location around the world, and they can also achieve bouts, which is which is good for kids, because that sense of achievement that they get from achieving something, it motivates them to want to carry on. And I mean, not all kids will stick around to a black belt, but it's what they get out of it during the time that they're with us, the confidence within themselves to be able to do anything in the community.
Thank you so much, Shane, for joining us this morning and all the work that you're doing to support and protect our tamariki. Ka nui te mihi ki a koe.
Kia ora whānau. Ngā mihi.
Ka pai. Well, Kipper Smith from Ngāti Kahungunu is a health worker working in Australia. He was in Aotearoa before lockdown with a food store to be opened for Polyfest. Due to lockdown, he and his wife had to rush back to Australia. Now, I spoke with Kipper earlier today. Kipper, tēnā rau atu koe and welcome to the program.
Tēnā koe, Shane. Yeah.
Before we talk about lockdown and what it's meant for you in Australia, you were back home here recently. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, my wife and I, we were participating at a food stall at Polyfest, and so we arrived home the weekend before. So Polyfest was on the Wednesday on the 18th. So we found, just to prepare, get all the food ready and all that sort of stuff. So by the Tuesday, I think we found out that it was cancelled. So, it is what it is. We also had Polynesian shows, one in Auckland on the Monday after Polyfest, and then one in Melbourne, and then one back in Sydney. So all of that was cancelled as well. So just in that 1 week, that was cancelled. The Polyfest, the shows that we had were cancelled. And then we heard that there was a lockdown coming. They were closing the borders on the Sunday after. So, my wife and I were straight down to the airport, and we got us onto a flight for the next morning. And when we returned back to Sydney, we were straight into a 14-day isolation. So it kind of happened all within that 1 week. And so moving forward to the isolation, well, that is what it is, isolation, exactly that. Have I gone too far ahead?
No. So you had to cut your trip home short. And then, of course, you found yourselves in lockdown in Australia. How have you found the past few weeks?
It's been a bit out of the normal, but, it is what it is. So, just going with the flow. Luckily for us, we still had the essential, like the KFC and all the fast food outlets open. We still had access to it. Like at home in New Zealand, that was part of the use. So it's been a bit different, been a bit of a struggle, but it is what it is. We just have to do what we got to do and do the best we can. Lucky for social media, we can still communicate. I mean, like even for a doctor, you can get a consultation on the phone straight from your doctor. They send the prescription over to the pharmacy, and the pharmacy can deliver it. So, technology, Uber Eats, if you want to buy stuff, you can get it brought in and all that sort of stuff.
Yes, we certainly appreciate social media and those facilities. Now, I understand you're an essential worker in Australia. How has that been working during this pandemic?
Yeah, it's, have to be extra careful, sanitising our hands, washing and showering before we go, putting on the mask, the gloves. Then when we get to work, we're just making sure you're just cleaning constantly. When you're working with customers, people that we work with disabilities. And also when we return home from work, straight into the shower, off with the clothes, washing our hands and, just all those precautions that we need to be doing, especially as essential workers. We could pass it on if we, get the virus. So, yeah, it's been a lot of extra work being careful about everything, just making sure you're staying safe and keeping them safe.
Absolutely. Kipper, you're going to sing for us today. Can you tell us about the song that you're going to sing?
Oh, okay, yes. So, during the lockdown, we've got a lockdown page. I think they use it in New Zealand too. And so every day, that's how we've been keeping ourselves a bit sane. through singing on the lockdown page on the Facebook. So the song I've been singing, I've got a bit of a Stevie Wonder medley. You are the sunshine of my life. So on this page, we just sing on there, brighten everyone's day, lives up. And so, shall I go ahead?
Absolutely. Take it away.
You are the sunshine of my life. That I'll always be around. You are the apple of my eye. Forever you stay in my arms. I feel like this is the beginning. No, I've loved you for a million years. Oh, and if I thought my love was ending, I find myself drowning in my own tears. Oh, you are the sunshine of my life. That's why I'll always be around. You are the apple of my eye. Forever you stay in my arms. Isn't she lovely? Isn't she wonderful? Isn't she precious? Less than 1 minute ago, I never thought that life would be making love as lovely as she. Isn't she lovely, made from love? Like a lonely street, I keep running for the dream. Moving on, moving on. Like a branch on a tree, I keep reaching to be free. Moving on, moving on. There's a place in the sun. Well, there's hope for everyone. And my poor restless child gotta run. There's a place in the sun. But before my life is done, gotta find me a place in the sun. Gotta find me a place in the sun.
Kipper Smith there, a beautiful kahungunu voice. Well, following our interview with Wali Haumaha earlier this morning, we can now confirm that all checkpoints are lawful with police presence. Thank you to the police for that point of clarification. Well, coming up on tomorrow's program, we meet talented singers from Kirikiriroa and Western Australia. Rākai Fofo is the son of well-known music maestro Adam Fofo. Rākai performs a medley of 7 well-known waiata Māori. And Western Australia songstress Waverley McElroy also joins us. We're also pleased to announce that from next Monday, Tapatahi will be on at breakfast time at 7 o'clock in the morning. And yes, you can still watch us at 10:30 if you wish, or at any other time online on our Facebook page or on our website. Well, thank you to all our guests that joined us today, and thank you for joining us. Koe nā a tapatahi mo tēnei rā, hei kona mo tēnei wā.